Many of you already know this, but I am collecting every Pokemon card almost. So it's a challenge that I kind of took on really in the middle of summer, trying to, I don't know, take a break from all the financial talk and all of the crazy market stuff that's going on. And I want to build a master set of every single set release that Pokemon has ever had. And the challenge runs until the end of 2026. And basically what we're doing is we're building master sets for every unlimited main series set. And then we are also doing the specialty sets, the half sets like Shining Fates, Dragon Majesty, Dragon Vault, I guess would be one. But we're not doing first edition sets. We're not doing promo sets. That would be a little bit too ridiculous. And it's been a journey. It's been a lot of fun. We're 85 days in, something like that. And I was already building master sets anyways. And then with Obsidian Flames, I started building two master sets every single set release. So that way I could give one to one of you guys, one subscriber. So I would have one for my collection, and then I would have one that I'd give away to a subscriber. We've been doing that every single set release. So we'll do the next one with Phantasmal Flames, which comes out here in a few weeks. We'll get that in. We'll start building the master set for the collection, and then one to give to you guys. So make sure to hit that subscribe button if you're not already subscribed. The problem with doing this right now is cards have obviously exploded in price. Reverse Hollows, which we'll talk about on Sunday, have shot up in price, but also Gold Stars. Gold Stars are very difficult to find. And alternate arts have also really jumped up in price, and that's what we're going to talk about in today's video, comparing Gold Stars. Well, kind of comparing Gold Stars. A lot of people say that alternate arts are modern day Gold Stars, and there's a few differences, and you can let me know what you think in the comment section down below, because you look at Gold Stars and the pricing for Gold Stars, and they've shot up. Now, Gold Stars were a limited kind of niche that Pokemon released in the mid 2000s, 2005, 2006, somewhere around there is when Gold Stars started appearing, and I believe that there's 25 of them that you can pull from an actual booster pack. We're not talking about Pop Series packs. Pop 5 obviously has the Espeon Gold Star, the Umbreon Gold Star, and we're not talking about the modern day Gold Stars, the Umbreon Gold Star that you can pull from Celebrations. We're not talking about the Greninja Gold Star. We're talking about the 25 Gold Stars that you can actually pull from a main series set release booster pack. Trico and Mudkip and the Reggies and things like that. Those have gotten really, really expensive and tough to find in raw condition. I don't know if I'll have to find slabs and crack those, but even a Rayquaza Gold Star is super expensive raw. Even a PSA 1 is super expensive, so Rayquaza is going to be a very difficult one to chase down. But when you compare Gold Stars and their price points to what alternate arts are today, there's a lot of different things that you can kind of it makes it difficult. So that's why when you fast forward time, look in the future, 25 years, let's say. So Pokemon is celebrating their 50th anniversary right now. Do you expect alternate arts to surpass Gold Stars as far as price point goes? And do you expect Gold Stars to continue climbing in price over the next 25 years? Pokemon is obviously a very volatile market right now. It's crazy. And who knows where Pokemon would be or will be in the next 25 years. It could not be in existence anymore. People could not play Pokemon anymore. I hope they do. I hope they still have a lot of fun with it. But right now, a lot of people are getting frustrated. They're exiting the hobby. 25 years, a lot of people who were involved over the last few years are going to be coming back into the hobby with their kids, and they're going to be enjoying maybe ripping packs from their childhood or revisiting their collection with their kids and reliving that nostalgia and things like that. And alternate arts are obviously a big part of that. And we're talking alternate arts, specifically the ones from the Sword and Shield block, starting with battle styles and going all the way up to Silver Tempest, I believe. So we're not including Trainer Gallery cards. A lot of people call those alternate arts. We're not talking about special illustration rares. A lot of people call those alternate arts. We're talking about just the Sword and Shield block. I'm not even talking about the Sun and Moon block. I believe that there's 55 of them, and I could be wrong. I believe there's 55 alternate art Vs and VMAXs, not including the promotional ones that they did, like the Vaporeons, the Jolteon, the ones that you get automatically in a collection box. I'm talking about just the ones that you can pull from a booster pack, from a main series booster pack throughout the Sword and Shield era. I believe there's 55 of them, and a lot of them have just exploded in price. Some of them have not. Some of them are still relatively inexpensive, or maybe they've exploded in price as far as percentage goes, but not super expensive, and that's what we're going to look at today. But the big difference is pull rates is number one. A Gold Star you could pull in 2 booster boxes. So back in the mid-era, when or EX era, when all these Gold Stars were coming out, it would take you the equivalency of 2 booster boxes to open up a singular Gold Star. 1 out of 7 2-packs. That's goated. Like, that is super good pull rates for a gold star or a card of that rarity when we look back on it now. If you look at alternate arts, so there are 2 different rarities. There's the V and the V Max. So an alternate art V, like the Umbreon V, which is super expensive now, would be the equivalent of about 1 out of like 108 packs, 1 out of 3 booster boxes to pull an alternate art V card. And then to pull an alternate art V Max, like the Umbreon V Max, forget about it. It's like 1 out of 7 booster boxes. So very, very much more difficult to pull an alternate art V or an alternate art V Max than a gold star. So those should be more expensive, right? Well, not necessarily, because you look at the print numbers, and over the past few years, Pokemon has literally printed half of the cards they've ever printed. Or over half, or some ridiculous number. Pokemon is printing so many cards over these past few years to try and meet demand, whereas during the EX era, when gold stars were coming out, there was no demand for Pokemon. Booster packs were left on the shelves, they were clearanced out, so those gold stars, which were super cool to pull back in the day, weren't chased after. They weren't anywhere near as popular as what like an alternate art is now. So the potential existence numbers, and this is something that's always fascinated me, there's got to be so many more alternate arts of a single variation, so like an Umbreon V, than a gold star Trico, because Pokemon would have printed way less. They would have printed way less because demand wasn't there for any of those booster packs back then. So that's something to keep into consideration now. But then you also have to look at demand. Well, demand wasn't there then, and a lot of people who are coming back into the hobby now aren't necessarily reliving their childhood from that era because there wasn't demand. They're reliving their childhood from the base set, from the Wizards of the Coast sets, from that era, because that was their childhood. That's when the demand was booming. So if we fast forward even further, then you look at the demand from this time was obviously way bigger. So the potential is much higher than what the gold star potential ever had been because the demand wasn't there then. So this is like all of this twisted mindset things of like, how does this look like in the future? And I'm curious to get your thoughts. So let me know in the comment section down below what you think. But we're going to look at the price increases for some of these gold stars because they are pretty insane. I know we've had like some big jumps across the market everywhere because Pokemon is just super popular right now. But alternate arts just keep growing and they're not retracing as much as some of these other cards. So let's take a look. I wanted to touch on like a wide variety of alternate arts because a lot of times we talk about like the same ones, the ones from Evolving Skies and maybe the Gengar VMAX, maybe the Giratina V. But obviously with 55 gold stars that you can pull from booster packs, there's a lot of them. There's a lot of them, and some of them that are less expensive than others, but they're still improving percentage-wise better than what some of the more popular ones are. So we're going to look at a wider variety of different ones to kind of get a feel for what they've been doing over the past year in the market, starting out with this Aerodactyl V, which was $120 for like the longest time. I remember when Aerodactyl V originally came out in Lost Origin and PokeRev was opening packs and couldn't find it. This is when he would do opening up a master set, like the lives that he would do, which were super entertaining. But he would open up all of these booster packs, and Aerodactyl V was like the one card he couldn't find. And because he couldn't find it, it got bought out on the secondary market. Everybody was like, oh man, holy buckets, the Aerodactyl V is impossible to find. Let's buy it now before it skyrockets in price. And it really had the same pull rates as all the other ones, all the other alternate arts from Lost Origin. And then batching kind of became a thought, and it was really just, he just had bad luck. He just couldn't pull the Aerodactyl V. He pulled the Giratina without problem, but he couldn't pull the Aerodactyl V, which caused the price point to skyrocket and then kind of retrace and settle at like $120 for the longest time. You can see in October of 2024, it was down to about 90 bucks, $93.61. Then started climbing, jumped up to about $140 when we had this giant boom, this influx of people into the Pokemon community, where a lot of people who really hadn't been involved in Pokemon before were just coming in and buying up everything and anything they could find, whether it be sealed product or singles, and we saw this giant increase and then this giant retrace. And that's when July hit and it jumped out or dropped down to about $120. But now it's climbed again, and you're not really seeing this influx of demand. You're not really seeing this influx of amount of sales. So you do have a couple of periods of time where there's all of a sudden 20 25 that sold on a weekly basis and 20 that sold on a weekly basis. But for the most part, it's hovering right around 10, but it keeps climbing even at that higher percentage point, or even at those higher price points. So it did recently hit 181.69. That's an all-time high for this card. Now it's sitting at $179.52. So that's about 92% growth over the past year. And personally, alternate arts, obviously, as packs get more expensive, less and less are going to be open. So Lost Origin continues to climb in price from a sealed perspective, not just booster boxes, but loose packs as well. So that means less are going to be open on rip and ship streams. People aren't going to pay those higher price points to chase some of these more expensive cards, especially when it takes you the equivalency of 108 packs just to pull a singular alternate art. So you might see some of these alternate arts just continue to climb over the years, and it's all about like working up to that. Not necessarily going out and buying an Aerodactyl V at $180, but if this is a chase card for you, or a card that you really want to add to your collection, selling off bulk, trading off bulk, getting store credit, getting rid of some of the cards that you don't want, and then kind of focusing on, building up to a more expensive purchase. You see all this content out there about all these thousands of dollars cards at card shows and events and things like that, and it looks fun, but it's not realistic. It's not something that if you're getting into the hobby or recently got in the hobby that you should just jump all into. You need to stick to your means, and I think that's really important. It's like, I love the Umbreon V. Do I love it enough to go out and spend $600 for it right now? No, probably not. I can't afford that. Like, I have to get one for my master set, and I'll build up to it, but maybe I trade in bulk, maybe I trade in some of the other stuff that I don't need or have duplicates or triplicates of, and then you work up to it little by little. So here is that Umbreon V, which has gotten bought out a couple of times, and I'm not going to say another PokeRev story because that had really nothing to do with him. It was just the Umbreon V has been bought out and manipulated multiple times, and you can see it really happening a couple months ago, where all of a sudden about 35 of them sold in August on a weekly basis, and then 25 the following week, whereas normally it sells about 10 on a weekly basis. So October of 2024, this was sitting at $149.31. Climbed a lot, like what we saw from a lot of these other cards, and then retraced. And in July, it was back down to about $240-ish, and then really took off now over the past couple of months. Now it's jumped up to about $616.23, which is right off of its all-time high of $687.88. The other thing to remember for a lot of these alternate arts is you're not going to see a ton of movement as far as supply goes, because there's not a whole lot of movement on the secondary market. There's not a whole lot of supply that gets put on the secondary market, especially when you come to near mint raw cards. This is all near mint raw cards that we're looking at, and you only see 10 to 15 selling on a weekly basis because a lot of these cards get graded, a lot of these go into the PSA Pop Report, a lot of these get moved at shows, so they're not getting sold online as much, which makes it a lot easier to manipulate and a lot more volatile on the secondary market, because you see these price shifts a lot more suddenly, a lot more vastly, because there's not as many. It can easily just disappear on the secondary market, especially on TCG Player, which is for some reason like the base of what everybody uses for market pricing. So it can change in the blink of an eye, like in the snap of a finger. It can move really, really quickly because there is such limited quantities on that secondary market. So Tyranitar V from Battle Styles, beautiful card. I love this one. October of 2024, it was at $129.55. Grew a lot, and you can see get bought out a little bit in January there, jumped up to about $230, but then retraced, and then in July started moving a lot more. A lot of these alternates did get picked up again. They got bought out, but it's stuck at this higher price point as less quantities sold, because there was less quantities available on that secondary market. So it recently hit $298.26. It's retraced to $291.58 right now, but you're still looking at almost 113% growth over the past year. The Gengar VMAX continues to climb. Remember, VMAX is obviously a little bit more difficult to pull than the alternate RVs. October of 2024, this was sitting at $342.97. We saw giant growth as more and more sales volume happened because more people entered the hobby, and in January of 2025, it was closing in on $800. It was at about $750, but then it did retrace, and you can see in April, it fell back down to below $600. We saw that with a lot of cards, a lot of special illustration rares, a lot of illustration rares, and a lot of alternate arts as well. Now, because there is less quantities available on the secondary market, again, it moves. It's more volatile because more people want to get these cards now rather than wait in case they do pull a gold star in the future and they become $2,000-$3,000 cards. Now, this one has jumped up to $774.65, which is right right off of its one-year high of 774.65. So you're looking at about 126% growth over the past year and sticking at that higher price point. Here's the Charizard V from Brilliant Stars, obviously a fan favorite, and obviously going to make some noise, especially right before Phantasmal Flames comes out, because we're going to get Charizard pumped, we're going to get Charizard all over the place. That's just going to happen right now because of the release of Phantasmal Flames and because of the release of the new Mega Charizard Ultra Premium Collection. October of 2024, this was a $150 card. And you can see not that giant growth. It did grow up until April. It was about $220, but we didn't see that giant increase in price like what we did with some of these other alternate arts. Then retraced a little bit in April, fell below $200 again, leveled off a little bit, and now it's jumped up like crazy as this most recent buyouts have stuck a lot more. So it jumped up to $395.54 recently. It's sitting at $374.65 right now, so you're looking at about 149% growth over the past year. The Lugia V has continued to grow. So this one did have a little bit of a retrace, but it did, I mean, it's just gone crazy. 175.07 is where this started in October. You can see it climb in January, hit about 300 and then retrace until July where it fell down to about 250, but now it's just continued to grow. Not as many buyouts happening on this one. It just seems like once stock gets loaded, it gets purchased and at higher price points, it keeps sticking. It's up about 158.56%, sitting at an all-time high right now of 458.04. I do like this card. I do think it's really cool. Alternate arts, obviously the V's a little bit easier to pull than the VMAXs. Silver Tempest a little bit cheaper of a booster pack from the Sword and Shield era compared to Lost Origin and Brilliant Stars. And then I think you have Silver Tempest and Astral Radiance, a little bit lower end of those 4 trainer gallery sets. So 458.04 and continuing to climb. Here's the Galarian Moltres V, and part of this too is because of what they sell for in PSA 10. PSA 10 commands a much higher price for a lot of these cards. And if the price point for like a Lugia V, for example, is $1,000 in PSA 10 and raw near mint, it's $458.04. A lot of people are going to take their chances, buy the card, grade it in hopes to get that $500 return, and if it doesn't happen, they'll just crack the slab and sell it near mint raw for $460. Galarian Moltres from Chilling Reign, October of 2024, this was $127.50. Saw that giant growth, right? Grew a lot, and then in April it was already $200, a $204 card in April, and then retraced in July back down to about $160, and now it's grown quite a bit again. Not selling as much as some of these other cards, but that's again because the quantities aren't necessarily there. Once you have these more bloated sets too, like Chilling Reign and like Evolving Skies, where there are so many more alternate arts to pull from, the quantity available is going to be less. So the amount in existence for like a Galarian Moltres V is probably less than the Lugia V, because there's only 4 alternate arts in Silver Tempest, whereas a set like Chilling Reign, there's a lot more. So you're going to pull this less frequently, opening up, if you open up 10,000 packs of Chilling Reign, you're going to find less alternate arts of Galarian Moltres than you are if you open up 10,000 packs of Silver Tempest. You're going to find a higher quantity of Lugia Vs because there's less alternate arts available in Silver Tempest than there was in Chilling Reign. So it's currently sitting at 204.84, so that's an all-time high for this card. It's up about 58%. The Mew VMAX has just done crazy things. There wasn't a whole lot of demand for this one when it originally came out. Part of the appeal was just because it was super competitive. So this one was a world champion. Mew VMAX ended up winning the world championships a few years ago. Not necessarily the alternate art version, but the regular version of it. VMAXs are going to be popular down the road. They're going to be popular because it's a niche. It's an area that Pokemon stopped printing. So VMAXs, V-Stars, it's no different than some of the other niches that they've done in the past, like Prime cards, like Legend cards and things like that. There are a lot more VMAXs available, but VMAXs down the road, people will look back and they'll reminisce, about their favorite VMAX and things like that. October of 2024, this was sitting at 75.62. We did see quite the come up in January where it was close to $220, but then retraced and leveled out a little bit. And then July, like some of these other ones, started climbing again. Just recently hit $259.29. That's an all-time high for this one, up about 243%. The Mewtwo V from Pokemon Go obviously done some crazy things and continue to do some crazy things. Didn't really retrace as much as some of these other ones. So October of 2024 was at $16.98. We saw quite a bit of growth in January where it jumped up to about $60. Did retrace down to about $35 and then kind of leveled out. Slow growth after that. And then July really took off. Now it's up 382.5%. So it's sitting at $84.23. That's just off of its all-time high of $84.88. You can see the buyouts continuously happening as TCG Player loads up some more inventory, and then all of a sudden it gets bought out for the next few weeks. And then over the following few weeks, it loads up some more inventory, and then it gets bought out again. The good thing is Pokemon Go packs still relatively inexpensive. Obviously not easy to find. You're not going to find them in stores, but online you can still find them relatively cheap compared to some of the other packs. In Mewtwo V, a smaller set, it wasn't the most difficult card to pull. So there should be a fair amount of Mewtwo Vs out in existence, and probably a lot more that can still be opened, but still very strong growth for that one. The Genesect V from Fusion Strike, obviously a very competitive card as well. October of 2024, this was sitting at $13.05, so a very inexpensive alternate art. We saw quite the growth, and then you can see in April just this giant buyout happen where all of a sudden 90 copies sold. It still retraced a little bit after that, but then got bought out again in July, and then we see this higher price point, and that's where it kind of starts to stick. So hit $31.80 recently. Now it's at $30.70, so relatively inexpensive still, especially compared to all the other alternate arts, but still up about 133.5% over the past year. Here's the Beedrill V from Astro Radiance. Very cool artwork on this one. October of 2024, it was at $22.79. You can see it get bought out, where all of a sudden a week hit where 20 or 60 of them sold. But for the most part, it's been relatively flat as far as the quantity of sales go. It's pretty much been around 20 sales every single week since January. So in January, it hit about $45, $44, then did retrace back down to about $30, and now it's gotten back to that one-year high. So just recently hit $46.58. Now it's sitting at $45.46, so up about 80% on that one. The Origin Form Palkia V, a very competitive card by itself for a long time in the TCG world. October of 2024, it was at $37.91. It saw that giant growth, like what we saw from some of these other ones as well, where in February, March, it was sitting at around $70, then retraced down to about $60 in July before taking off again. Recently hit $86.73. Now it's sitting at $84.50, so up about 122% on that one. The Noivern V from Evolving Sky has just done crazy things over the past year without really having that retrace. Just every other week, it just seems like more copies are being sold, not getting replenished on the secondary market before they get bought out again. October of 2024, it was sitting at $31.88. You see it just grow all the way up until about May, when it was at about $45. So the small retrace that it had happened right around June, where it fell back down to about $38 and then just climbed up immediately after that. Now, this most recent buyout that happened in August, where 30 copies sold on that weekly basis, it's stuck, and the higher price point of $72.64 it seems to be here to stay. $73.77 is where it just recently hit. $72.64 is where it currently is, so up about 113.5%. Then we've got the Galarian Articuno V from Chilling Reign as well. October of 2024, it was sitting at $41.85. You can see obvious signs of buyouts happening. Jumped up in January to about $60, leveled out a little bit, and then retraced in July back down to about $47. And now it's taken off again. Normally only selling about 5 copies per week. So when there's times where it sells 15, 30, like obviously something a little fishy is going on. This most recent buyout seems to have stuck a little bit. It's up about 79%, so it's sitting at $77.50. That's an all-time high for that one. And then the last one we're going to look at is Duraludon V from Evolving Skies, one of the more cheaper ones, one of the less expensive ones, this one and the Duraludon V Max. In October of 2024, Evolving Skies very much like Chilling Reign, where there's a lot of alternate arts in there, so the quantity of unique ones, individual ones, is probably going to be less than some of these other Sword and Shield era sets. So October of 2024, it was sitting at $10.67. Consistent growth all the way up until July, and that's when those buyouts stuck. So all of a sudden you see 45 copies sold and then 30 copies the next week, and now it's at a higher price point. So it went from $10.67 up to $26.29 recently. It's retraced down to $25.78. So it might come back down a little bit more, but definitely one to keep an eye on. Up about 132.67%, which is pretty crazy. A lot of alternate arts making a lot of noise. I'm curious to get your thoughts, how you would compare them to Gold Stars, what it looks like in the future. I find it very interesting to kind of look at this information, not necessarily make a decision based off of it, but just to look at it. I think you can learn a lot from just kind of studying the market, even though it can get frustrating at times, so that way you can make better decisions when it comes to spending your collection dollars. So I hope you enjoyed the content. If you did, please hit that subscribe button down below, leave a like, leave a comment. It goes a really long way for the algorithm, but ultimately, thank you just for being here. Love you guys. I'll talk to you again on Sunday. Till next time, peace.